What happened to the latest update for Manor Lords? What's going on? I don't know, but we're about to find out. Hello again there, friends and fans. Raptor here, and welcome back to a seemingly big update coming soon from Manor Lords. Yeah, Greg himself has posted again on the Steam store page after me just checking the other day. I saw nothing since April of 2025, and then, well, luckily, one of you guys had told me during our live streams that, hey, he just posted, and this is a breakdown video of all the things coming soon to Manor Lords, a big new change to a lot of things and new systems as Greg has added to the team since his last update. Now, what is taking this update so long? Well, the answer seems to be pretty simple yet complex at the same time. Simply put, it's just because they're working on redoing all the systems. They're apparently going back and changing a lot of things, the core systems of the game, which isn't really explained too much in this update news, actually. But one thing that is explained is that the basic premise of the game in terms of where you're going to be building is going to be changed. So, for example, here on the Steam store page post, Greg is mentioning that there'll be different affinities or like zone systems where there'll be like a woodland zone, a meadow zone, and a farmland zone. And there'll be different bonuses for putting things like, for example, an apiary in one zone. And then there's now also synergy between, for example, the orchard. If you put an apiary next to an orchard, then they'll have some sort of a buff for production for each of them, because the apiary, of course, will help to pollinate the orchards. The orchards will then produce more apples, and then, of course, the bees will be able to produce more honey, that kind of thing, or wax, or whatever else may be coming down the line. Now, honestly, in addition to that, there does seem to be some changes to how the game looks, and with the added team, things are getting a little bit more arty, and I like that, because really, what makes Manor Lords look so nice is the medieval art style of the perk system, and then also some of the other things that you happen to unlock, like the map, and when you're looking through some of the UI. It looks clean and either like silver and black, or there's a beautiful painted art style for the card system for all sorts of different perks, and there's reworked building cards too, so I suspect that at the bottom of the screen, some of these images will change, which you're used to now. The symbols for them will be a little bit more complex. It's simple, like arty, but yet still break it down fairly simply through art, I guess. Anyway, one thing that's also coming that's big is a new map, a map by the name of Divided, and that's going to be a smaller map, it looks like, or maybe kind of slightly smaller than the standard map, but it'll be divided by a mountain range. No real big details on that, but looking at the map, it does look like it'll have some larger ish rivers. Maybe they'll be a little larger and then break down into a stream, so those could be possible for river fishing. That will be coming in the previous notes for the update. It was announced that there'll be that, so hopefully that's something that'll be brought into this new update as well. So it's an update to the possible update, possibly coming soon. Possibly. There's unfortunately there's not a lot of news on that, but it is good to see that Greg is at least posting 3 months later, and that there's some real reworking done of some of the core systems. I'm glad that it's not like just continuously being built on, but that there'll be more things added to the game, and then also reworked from the beginning. So we're getting both, and that's good. There's also going to be see-through fortifications. Remember, in our last update, we also talked about castles that will be coming to the game. Of course, you're building your own manor, and that has fortifications. And already in the game, you can build a little manor house and build a wall around that with guard towers. But then eventually in the new update, you'll be able to upgrade those to be castle walls and towers and have some pretty strong fortifications. If you played Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 or 2, think of some of the castles you've seen there. It doesn't look to be anything massive, but it is certainly a formidable thing for your opponent to conquer, which of course AI updates are coming soon too, which will allow the enemy to be able to build towns and then eventually attack and siege you. There's a lot of plans for this game, but it looks like back to the drawing board again for Greg and the team. But now that he's finally hired a team, that's good. I think him doing it all on his own for the longest time was a good move, because then he can really see what he wants to accomplish and what he wants it to be, and then he can try to make it as close to that as possible. He did the work himself. Now it's time to go back and kind of rebuild things from the ground up. Now, with this, there's not any news on when the update is coming. And that's a little concerning for me, because it's like it could be another 3 months or so, and we've got all these other great games coming down the line. Farthest Frontier, of course, 1.0 update is coming out in September, and finally that game will release. And we've also got recently Foundation that released into 1.0, and we also have just tons of other wonderful little city builders that come out from time to time. And Manor Lords, I think, is the one that still has the center spotlight, as it was the #1 wishlisted game on Steam for the longest time until it released. And Now, people want more and more progress with it. I completely understand that, but I think it will be a long time until those who were kind of hesitant to get the game and saw its launch will be interested again. I think we'll have to be closer to something around 1.0, where the combat is much more in-depth and there's a much more complete game from A to B. Although I will say right now, if the update were to drop today, the allure of being able to start from a small little town and then be able to fortify that town and build a manor to that is still wildly interesting, and it's cool to see this game being replayed time and time again and experience all the differences, the new buildings, and the changed mechanics. If you remember back at like 1.0, we had so much difficulty in the initial game trying to get all the taverns to have enough ale and to be able to distribute enough goods through the marketplace. You almost had to have like 75% of the town working in markets and in logistics to store things, to be able to transport things to where they had to go to be stored, and then transport them again to go to the marketplaces, and then have the marketplaces actually sell those things. It was a lot of work. And so it seems like by watching players actually play the game and by developing all sorts of different strategies, now Greg can develop different systems to assist those types of things to make the game more enjoyable and not to be an uphill grind. Now, in the patch notes or in the update notes, he also mentions that they're working on how some of the plots will work, where it's basically trying to fit like a square peg in a round hole type thing. It looks like they're going to try to make buildings work a little different. They're reworking buildings, production change, environmental interactions, and also, well, the plan is basically to make it so that way the team will continue to work on those things that already exist, and then to add more things to those things that exist already. So either make changes to them completely or use things that already work and then make them better. So a little bit of this and a little bit of that. It's very vague, honestly, but at least there's some news in that, you know, Greg is sharing some interesting images on the affinity system and things like that. So, but yeah, so it looks like pollination for orchards, meadows. We've got farmland and woodland that'll be coming, so it'll be interesting to see how that will work for previous saves. I'm a little concerned there as to how that might ruin some people's cities, but also I think in a game like this, it's no problem starting over. Honestly, in my opinion, that's the most enjoyable thing to do, is to start in a whole new map with new systems, new updates, and get a fresh look at it from time to time. So anyway, what he says about the rectangular plots is that fitting rectangular plots into circles is not pleasant, and it reduces the creativity the player has. I think what that means is when you put down a burgage plot, you typically get, what, 4 points that you can put down to make a kind of rectangular or a square plot. So it looks like they'll be making it so you can make more curved or circular plots too. So if you're trying to make something that curves along a river, maybe you'll have more points to make a more detailed fence line and make a manor, or rather a burgage plot, that's a lot more appropriate. So something like a bigger farm for carrots or something of that nature. Anyway, yeah, not too much to this one, honestly, but at least there's some news for it, and I am excited to see what awaits us for Manor Lords in the future. So I just wanted to read the statement on the update from Greg just to make things clear that that's pretty much all we're getting from him for this one. Hey everyone, I know it's been a while since the last update, probably longer than most of you expected. I wanted to take a moment to explain what's going on and show a bit of what we've been working on behind the scenes. I know you've been waiting a long time, and the reason for that delay is pretty simple. We're overhauling a lot of the systems at once, and it's not just a new feature or two, it's been a full rework of how things like buildings, production chains, environmental interactions function. Because we're working on all these big changes, we haven't been able to put out smaller patches. They would make things messy and or break stuff that's already being worked on. The plan is that once the update is out, we'll be able to shift to smaller, more frequent updates going forward. That's something we couldn't really do before, but we've got a bigger team now, which should make that possible. First, though, we need to get this big update out, and that's the focus, and we're working hard to make that wait worth it. Here's a quick look at some of the things we're changing. So the next thing he's going to mention is the affinity system, and I'll read that in a moment. But again, remember, this small update to the update includes all the things I mentioned about the castles and maps and things before. So in addition to the big upgrade to the manors and new things that have been mentioned previously, they're reworking all those systems, and we get a new system on top of that, the affinity one. So this update is quite large, and I think honestly they stopped after adding the new castle stuff to then rework everything. So this could be a big point going forward, to have a massive change to the game that then will kind of stop the big delays between updates. So instead of reworking a lot of stuff and going back to the drawing board, my biggest hope here is that it's just new content every at least 2 months, 2 to 3 months would be great. And now on to notes about the affinity system. We wanted a more in-depth relational system between buildings and other buildings, as well as between buildings and their environments. We prototyped what buildings what buildings games usually do, effects applied in a radius or specific zones, but found out that for Manor Lords, flexible plot systems don't play very well with placing stuff in areas, especially when they are circular. Fitting a rectangular plot into circles is not pleasant, and it reduces the creativity the player has. The solution we settled on is a system based on areas of different environmental types. The environments we have so far are meadow, woodland, farmland, rural, and urban. Buildings have different affinities. For instance, apiaries will benefit from a large woodland area in the region. Experimentally, we made it more complex, and some buildings can buff the affinities of other buildings. For instance, having apiaries can increase the existing effect of that pollination orchards get from meadows. Another example is placing houses or other structures will also increase urban affinity. No idea what urban affinity means, but yeah, I'm still looking forward to what this system is going to be, and of course future updates to the update for Manor Lords. So not sure when the next big one is going to hit, not sure if there'll be another update to this update before it does, but definitely make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that like button to see more on Manor Lords before and after the next update drops. Thanks again for all your support. Let me know what you think down below in the comments section. Have you been playing Manor Lords? Is this a great game? Is it amazing? Are you waiting? I want to know what your thoughts are. And also, well, if you're not into Manor Lords just yet, remember there's a Steam sale on this one for just a little while longer, 35% off until July 10th, just as a little FYI for that Steam sale. But you got to be under a rock if you haven't seen that. Anyway, take care, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye, everybody.